Built next door to Blount Mansion in 1818 by John Craighead, its tenure within the Craighead family was long-lived, as far as the age of the building goes. Too bad we can't say the same about the Craighead family. They all died out sometime in the late 1850s, at which point the house passed in ownership to Dr. George Jackson, who purchased the place. I bet you're thinking that when Jackson took possession of the house and moved his family in is when they started noticing activity. But you'd be wrong. It was actually pretty chill. None of the Craighead clan feeling the need to hang around, apparently. No, it was during Dr. Jackson's tenure of ownership that our ghost story begins, and most definitely in one of the most tragic and horrifying ways possible. Like most rich white dudes at the time, Jackson was no stranger to owning slaves, and he had at least one in a woman who ran his kitchen and did his housekeeping. Sadly, her name is lost to history, and as much as I would love to give her name back, I assure you there is no listing in any historical record of what it could be. At any rate, one of the features of the Craighead Jackson house is that it had an indoor kitchen that was part of the main house, albeit a basement kitchen. Like earlier homes and mansions of the region, it had a large, wide kitchen hearth and fireplace, one that wasn't raised and wasn't exactly cordoned off with safety features or under regulations like many modern fireplaces today. The story goes that somehow, someway, the cook's long skirts caught on fire. In her frantic effort to beat out the flames, the poor woman somehow struck her head, knocking herself unconscious. Horrifyingly, she then fell more completely into the fire, where she proceeded to burn to death. It wasn't long after the woman's tragic and untimely death that strange activity began in the house, starting with the grandfather clock in the hallway of the main level, functioning without any earthly means to start it. Soon, disembodied footfalls were heard on the empty basement stairs, and finally, the inability to keep any of the home's doors locked entered the fray. Before long, the Jackson family was remarking on these activities and how unnerving they were to friends and neighbors on the Knoxville social scene. Jackson's daughter was especially fit to be tied, and as the paranormal activity ramped up, the more unnerved the Jackson family became, until it wasn't long before they noped right the fuck out of there with all of the haste. While the home remained forever branded with the Craighead and Jackson names, the modest brick house would transfer hands many more times over before its acquisition by the Blount Mansion Association right next door. With plans to restore the historic home, funds were raised and a phone line was put in, and it wasn't long before both workers and members of the Historical Society began to notice the peculiar happenings in and around the old house themselves. They too noticed that the doors they certainly remembered securing would be found standing open only moments to hours later. Likewise, their conversations would be suspended, staring at one another in disbelief as the echo of phantom footsteps reverberated through the home, centering around that lonely basement stair. Just as soon as the phone line went in, another phenomenon was added to the home's repertoire in that the phone would suddenly just start ringing. But when the handset was picked up, there was no one on the other end, just empty static or silence. A phantom caller. Today, the Craighead Jackson house is sort of a part of the Blount Mansion's little historical complex and acts as an event space on the main floor. The basement is primarily used as a staging area for those events and was partially in use as a storage area and garden shed when I visited. Several flowering fruit trees having been acquired and sitting before the old fireplace where the slave cook supposedly lost her life. The second floor I was asked politely not to film, though I was allowed to go up and see it. It is under renovation, and I was told its final intent was to be archive and archive office space in addition to careful museum's item storage for some of Knoxville's history. It is a work in progress as of the writing of this book, and with a grand vision, which of course requires funding. So if you find yourself in downtown Knoxville and you stop in at Blount Mansion and Craighead Jackson House Visitors Center, in addition to dropping the normal fee to take the historical tour of the property, maybe leave a few extra bones in the donation bin, and as always, tip your tour guide. Even if you aren't in it for the spooky, the history is well worth it for both Blount Mansion and Craighead Jackson House.